Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we are going to completely demystify the habit loop. We're going to dive right into the literal turf war that is happening inside your skull right this second. You know, if you've ever wondered why you just can't seem to stick to a new routine, or why breaking a bad habit feels completely physically impossible, I want you to hear this loud and clear. It is not a lack of character. It's just neuroscience. We're going to map out the fascinating crossroads where cognitive brain science meets ancient Japanese philosophies, concepts like Kaizen and wabi-sabi, to really help you hack your biology and permanently modify your behavior.
All right, so here is our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the setup, move right into the conflict, navigate through the crisis, discover the resolution, and finally, we'll wrap the whole thing up with some highly practical protocols. Let's jump in. Starting us off is Section 1, the setup, and the brain's internal conflict. So I want you to think about the stark contrast between two very specific regions of your brain. Right behind your forehead is the prefrontal cortex. You can kind of think of this as the CEO of your brain. It's in charge of your conscious, goal-directed decisions. But here's the catch. It is highly sensitive and incredibly energy expensive. It depletes super fast when you're under stress. Now, deep inside your brain is the basal ganglia. This is your habit control center, and it operates a lot like a conveyor belt. Honestly, it doesn't care at all about your long-term goals. It only cares about efficiency. Its whole job is to package behaviors into automatic routines just to save your brain's precious energy.
And this internal turf war is essentially mediated by the habit loop, which is a cue, a routine, and a reward. Every single time you complete this cycle, neuroplasticity kicks in. Your brain actually starts wrapping this fatty substance called myelin around your nerve fibers. And here is a pretty wild fact for you. Myelin acts exactly like insulation on a copper wire. It dramatically increases the speed of electrical signals by up to 100 times. So once enough of that myelin is built up, your CEO prefrontal cortex basically clocks out, hands over control to the basal ganglia, and boom, the behavior becomes entirely automatic.
Moving on to Section 2, the conflict. This is all about why big goals trigger fear.
Okay, so whenever you attempt a massive overnight change, your amygdala, which is your brain's threat detection center, immediately sounds the alarm. From an evolutionary standpoint, sudden change just implies danger. Like if you suddenly decide to work out for an hour a day after literally years of inactivity, your amygdala reacts as if you were being chased by a bear. It floods your system with stress hormones. This creates what neuroscientist Andrew Huberman calls limbic friction. Basically, that's the massive amount of metabolic energy required to shift your brain from a resting state to intense focus. And this friction literally overloads and shuts down your prefrontal cortex, which causes instant self-sabotage.
Which brings us to a huge question. Why does willpower fail us so often? Well, neuroscience proves that willpower isn't a character trait at all. Actually, it's a super fragile physiological function, and it's heavily limited by stress, fatigue, and fear. When your prefrontal cortex is exhausted by all that limbic friction we just talked about, or even just a drop in blood sugar, it just goes offline. And what happens? Your brain immediately defaults back to the basal ganglia, which is more than happy to run your old, comfortable, bad habits. Trying to just white-knuckle your way through life on willpower alone? It is neurologically unsustainable. And that leads perfectly into Section 3, the crisis. Let's talk about the perfectionism trap. So, when our willpower inevitably slips, and it will, we hit what scientists call the abstinence violation effect. This is basically the formal academic term for the what the hell effect. And honestly, it proves that your slip-ups are just a biological glitch, not some deep character flaw. It happens when this rigid all-or-nothing thinking turns one tiny minor slip into a total behavioral collapse. For example, if you look at fMRI scans of highly restrained dieters, their deprivation actually makes them hypersensitive to cravings. So if they eat just one single cookie, their threat system goes into absolute overdrive. They feel like they've ruined the whole day, they think, well, what the hell, and they eat the entire box. Psychologist Kelly McGonigal actually points out this really cruel irony. Feeling shame makes you feel awful, right? So your brain urgently seeks out a fast strategy to feel better, which almost always is the bad habit itself. It's a vicious cycle. This perfectly maps onto the three-circle model of emotion regulation.
Perfectionists tend to have a massively overactive threat system and a severely under-resourced sooth system. So the antidote here isn't more discipline. It's actually the Japanese philosophy of wabi-sabi, learning to embrace imperfection. Think of kintsugi, that beautiful art of repairing broken pottery with gold. By mending our slip-ups with self-compassion instead of shame, we actually release oxytocin, we lower our cortisol levels, and we allow our prefrontal cortex to safely get back online and do its job.
All right, let's look at how we fix this in Section 4, the resolution, featuring the Kaizen solution.
To really outsmart our own threat detection system, we can use Kaizen. This is the strategy of continuous microscopic improvement. By making your new habit so incredibly small that it requires almost zero effort, you completely bypass the amygdala's radar. It's like a stealth mission. Because there's no perceived threat, there's no fight or flight response. Your prefrontal cortex stays completely online, and you smoothly execute the new behavior without sounding any biological alarms.
Take the 1-minute rule, for example. Your brain's biology genuinely does not care if you work out for 1 minute or 1 hour. It literally only cares about repetition. Just showing up for 60 seconds a day starts coding that brand new neural pathway in myelin. You are actively laying down the biological infrastructure for a massive, life-changing habit in the future, all while your inner threat system remains completely fast asleep. And guys, the math here is undeniable. Getting just 1% better every single day compounds over a year to make you 37 times better. 37 times! Now, during the early days, you're in what we call the cognitive phase, building entirely new pathways. You kind of have to just survive this early plateau where the results aren't really visible yet. But the neuroscience guarantees that if you just maintain those tiny microscopic steps, the compounding effect will eventually force the basal ganglia to take over, which leads straight to effortless mastery.
Finally, let's wrap this all up in Section 5, the protocols. Let's get into some practical brain protocols you can use right away.
Okay, let's actually apply this stuff. To conquer procrastination, you want to completely bypass your deliberative brain using implementation intentions, which are just simple if-then triggers. Like, if I pour my morning coffee, then I will open my laptop. If you combine this with the 2-minute rule, you practically eliminate the friction of getting started. Next up is temptation bundling, like telling yourself you can only listen to your absolute favorite playlist while you're cleaning the house. This rebalances your dopamine, making your brain literally crave the start of a chore. And finally, just visualizing the specific steps of your habit engages your procedural memory. This brings down your anxiety and totally primes your brain for action. Now, for building consistency, you should try task bracketing. That means linking a new habit to a highly predictable part of your day to create a really strong reflexive neural imprint. If you want to break bad addictions like mindless dopamine scrolling, you have to increase environmental friction. Simply put your phone in another room. If hedonic overeating is your struggle, try implementing hara-hachi-bu, which is the practice of eating only until you are 80% full. This actually gives your brain's insula enough time to register homeostatic satiety signals, like the hormone leptin. What if you catch yourself right in the middle of a bad loop? We use Andrew Huberman's replacement hook. Instantly do a positive physical action, like doing jumping jacks or just stretching, to physically disrupt the basal ganglia's automatic routine. And lastly, try to tackle your hardest, highest friction habits during phase 1 of your day. So the first 8 hours after you wake up, because that is when your dopamine and adrenaline levels are naturally peaking.
So, as we wrap up, I want you to remember this. Your brain does not build habits based on what you wish for. It builds them based on what you repeatedly do. We have to stop fighting a war against our own biology. Embrace the beautiful imperfection of your slip-ups. Just like kintsugi, use the stealthy approach of Kaizen to bypass your fears and just let neuroplasticity do the heavy lifting for you over time. I'm going to leave you with this one thought. If your brain is constantly recording your actions to decide who you truly are, what is the microscopic proof you are going to give it today?